admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
Good evening, fans of fantastic films, and welcome to the Drive-In Asylum late movie. I'm Bill Van Ryn, one of three lovely Aqua maids you'll have to look at this evening. The other two are Sam Panico and Mike Justice. Hello, guys.
Hi. Hello.
Sam, you sound so far away.
How's that? All right,
Little bit
I'll
better, I guess.
elucidate. How about that? Project.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Hello, everybody.
I'm really excited about this show tonight because this movie is very near and dear to my heart. And I don't know why we haven't done this movie on the show yet, but here it is, finally.
I like
Mako.
What Mike said
Johnson.
earlier, like you could, this was on nonstop in the mid '80s, the early '90s. It was a good. It was programmed many times, as it were.
Yeah, I found some TV ads of it showing they would program blocks, like 2 movies each, and they had it playing with Blood Mania and another one where it was playing with A Quiet Place to Kill.
Oh wow, that's a double feature I would never consider.
Yeah, I think when it first came,
You had me at Blood Mania.
totally. When it first came out on TV, it was always showing. It showed in prime time and it showed in late night, and then later on, it kind of migrated to the afternoons and became like this afternoon show movie.
Man, William Griffiths, he knows how to make movies that are interesting, even if the budgets aren't there. Like I've watched the whole set that Arrow put out, and there's some fun movies in there.
I think I've only ever seen Stanley.
Oh, really? The Hope Generation's pretty good, and Wild Rebels is pretty good.
Okay.
Wild Rebels is a biker movie, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but Stanley is pretty good, and this movie's kind of has a similar thing taken from it, where it's someone like Dr. Doolittle with the animals, but it just happens to be sharks and a medallion in this one.
The medallion part is so hokey. Like they could have just made him have an affinity with sharks, but they have to have
I think
magic.
probably Richard Jekyll was like, I think people won't buy this unless I have a wild medallion. And it was the 70s. It may have been his medallion. He's like, can't take it off. I'm like, well, let's work it into the script.
Right.
It would have been so much more intriguing just to think he had this unspoken affinity for sharks. Not to give any spoilers because for people who haven't seen it yet, so I won't mention what happens at the end. But
If you
changes
you're
things
wondering
up.
why Cubby doesn't bite back, it's because she has a medallion that she uses to control him.
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go.
And someday it'll fall off, and Cubby will chew her apart, and they'll be like, I guess she
Yeah.
she
Hopefully,
just
it doesn't fall off in the middle of the night so she can get away from him.
right. Yeah, I like this kind. Well, wait. So, Bill, why is it a special movie for you? Did you see it a lot as a kid or something? As a youngin?
It's one of those crucial moments where I got to watch a scary movie on TV, and this happened to be it. It was a CBS late movie in 1978, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time I watched it. So I was 8 years old, and this movie looked pretty scary because I had never seen Jaws, but Jaws was on everybody's lips, and everybody was talking about it. Especially that was the year of Jaws 2, so of course I'd never seen either of those. So I was like, here I'm finally going to get to see the killer shark movie.
CBS late night movie was like, hey, we got Jaws at home for you. You don't need to go out. You don't need to go. We got this is Jaws at home, and you're like, yes. And then when you saw Jaws, you're like, oh, it's a little different.
Remember that theme song for the CBS late movie?
Oh, yes.
Can't you just hear it in your head?
Oh, and then I can visualize 14 minutes of commercials in between segments before we came back.
That was pretty brutal.
But then when I realized if it had existed when I wasn't a child, that's when you go get beer. That's when you do some stuff around the house and then you come back to it. I understand that as an adult. As a child, I was like, get back to the fucking movie.
I found some old promos for it when it played on TV.
Oh wow!
And one is for the CBS late movie, and I posted them on Instagram because in one of them the voiceover guy says Mako, Jaws of Death, and in the other one he calls it Mako. And he goes, "Stay tuned for Mako."
Wow, that sounds like our show.
Yeah, I would be the one calling it Mako.
Right. I would too.
One of the things I love about this movie is pretty much outside of Richard Jekyll, everybody in this movie is scum. Like, you don't really feel bad for anybody getting, like, there's nobody in this where you're like, they weren't that bad. I feel bad they got like, everybody's pretty rank in this movie.
Well, the big black bartender's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the only really good guy in the movie. Even the protagonist, he's not the good guy, is he?
Nobody's good in this. Yeah, that guy's name is in real life is Butterball, and he was a DJ or something.
Oh wow.
He's one of my favorite characters in this movie. But I have to admit, who do you think is my favorite person in this entire film? Just based on that trailer we watched at the beginning.
Odd Job.
Yeah.
It goes without saying, right? I used every second I could find of him in his Speedo for that trailer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, these movies that Griffey makes feel like pro wrestling. Like, he gets local DJs to get involved. And obviously Harold Sakata, who was Odd Job, was a wrestler. And when Professor Toru Tanaka wanted to challenge him to a match to determine who could be the real henchman of the James Bond universe, and he's like, I'm in movies now. Like, I'm not just going to fight you over. I got other movies to be in. But yeah, James Bond movies always use wrestlers. This movie has, Harold Sakata, a wrestler, and wearing a barely there Speedo too. But as soon as I saw that slight pause as we see him up in that netting, I said, "This."
Yeah, I wasn't going to cut away from that anytime soon. In fact, I should have slowed it down to like a third of the speed.
So I recognize Jennifer Bishop from Al Adamson movies. Did she ever do any A-list stuff at all? Like, was she ever on like the Beverly Hillbillies or something like TV, or did she just do these regional?
Hee-Haw?
I don't know. I remember her from Bigfoot. That's the movie the movie I remember her from.
She may have been on Hee-Haw.
If only I had a magic black box in my hands to look this up. She was on Mission Impossible.
Okay.
I guess that's.
Please say she was on Hee-Haw, even if it's not there. Just make me look like I know what I'm talking about.
She was on Impulse, in the movie Impulse.
Oh, okay.
Oddjob was in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blood of Dracula's Castle, Miss Barbara Bishop. The Maltese
Oh.
Bippy, the Laugh-In movie. He's in that.
Holy shit. That's the connection I was looking for. She's in Blood of Dracula's Castle. I just realized that now that actress in that movie is the same Jennifer Bishop who's in our movie tonight.
She was also in an episode of Canon. This is her last movie.
I don't.
Sharkader.
Yeah.
There's no proof she survived.
So, I mean, we should talk about it later, but I'll just say it's funny that her last scene in her last movie is her getting eaten.
She's also in The Blood Creature. She's in a bunch of stuff. Yeah, a ton of Al Adams and stuff, like you said. Yeah. I love, when I was a kid, probably my dad shouldn't have let me watch. HBO used to play burlesque some nights, like if you stayed up really late. They had like live burlesque shows, and in one of them they had women swimming through like this movie has, like, you know, it's very 60s, like it's very Danger Diabolic, you know, like women swimming through as you're drinking a cocktail. And I thought when I was a kid, like when I grow up, that's what being grown up's gonna be like. And it's not. It's never been like that ever.
Yeah, I think I first saw this movie in '79. I think I went back and I looked in the old TV listings because I was like, I know I saw it at like 8:00 on a local channel, and I went back and looked in my hometown paper of Oakland, California, and I found it. And yeah, that was and it was weird because at the same time I found movie ads for Tintorera, but it was subtitled Jaws of Death.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I just thought it was funny that they would put that in the paper. Like, why would they want to draw allusions to some movie that was already playing on TV? And
before there was our Jaws of Death, there was a documentary about orcas called Jaws of Death. And I do have
Mako.
this here to look at.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
From the CBS late movie broadcast we were talking about. And this came from coolasscinema.com.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I looked for newspaper articles or ads for this, and I couldn't find any. Like for it showing on the CBS late movie, I found plenty of ads for when it played theatrically. But look, Mike Justice, we always talk about that severed hand.
Right,
it's done much better here.
Right, because at least it's a little bit more arty.
No, look, there's another one behind it.
Right, but the drawing on the video on the VHS, or I guess that was the poster. Yeah, with just a little hand sticking above the water, and there's nobody under it.
Yeah, and you just think, how could that hand be floating there? I guess maybe it was supposed to have been severed. The rest of the body had already been eaten.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. That was the poster because it was a Canon. Because I remember it was on Paragon Video, and Paragon Video would always just take the poster and just slap it on the cover. They never doctored them or anything.
I saw a couple of mentions of Richard Jekyll as a sexy daddy icon. I saw someone. So Darren said up there. I always think of Richard Jekyll as he had like a one-man war against nature in the 70s. He fought bats in Chosen Survivor, a bear in Grizzly, and then any animal you can think of in Day of the Animals. A movie that I was describing to someone the other day is the movie where Leslie Nielsen takes his shirt off. It has a 10-second match with a bear.
Right.
So the bear just annihilates him.
I always knew Richard Jekyll as like I felt like he had he played Linda Blair's abusive, controlling father in Born Innocent, and then he played Donna Wilkes' abusive, controlling father in Blood Song.
Oh. Imagine if he and Michael Douglas were in a movie together. No woman could do anything.
I know. I always kind of think of him in the same category as like Shatner, Cameron Mitchell, like Anthony Franciosa. Just they kind of all have the same sort of vibes.
Yeah. Angry.
That's my take on him too, is that he's just sort of like he fits in so well with all of those other guys who were in the same kinds of movies. So, you know,
he's not someone where you're like, I don't know if anyone else could have played this but Jekyll. You don't usually say that. You're like, yeah, he was fine in what he did. I
don't know. Bill Griffey said that he only flubbed one line of dialogue in this entire film. That's how professional Richard Jekyll was.
I like the idea that the club owner is using high frequency sounds to train sharks, which, I'm not a zoologist, but this seems like the worst idea. I don't think it works. I don't think it works like that.
They don't watch movies like this.
No, we wouldn't have a movie otherwise if the sharks didn't behave for a bit.
So here's one of the original newspaper ads for our film, which has alternate titles. Well, slightly alternate. Originally, it was just known as The Jaws of Death. And then later on TV, especially, it became known as Mako, Jaws of Death. Which I think that sounds a lot scarier, personally.
What is a Mako? I would want to know. It's an anti-orca. Oh, there's that hand.
Yeah.
And
So now you can see what Mike and I were talking about here. Like, it's just sort of illogical. Or are we reading too much into this?
I think they're just trying to be. They're taking artistic liberties with that.
There's another version of that same ad. It debuted in June of 1976. It was really hard to track down, though, when it specifically first appeared in theaters. Normally you can do that, but the phrase Jaws of Death is so common that there are so many articles to wade through. It's so many entries in the search engine. You're just like, you know what?
Yeah. I typed it in there and I hit show oldest first, and something popped up from like 1899 that said Jaws of Death. I'm like, really?
It's credited sometimes as a 1975 film. And interestingly, there was a little bit of press about this because William Griffey had directed the underwater Bond sequence in, was it Live and Let Die?
yeah.
There was a shark sequence, and he had directed that, and that's how one of the reasons that he got this film made, because he claims to have written it several years before Jaws became a huge box office smash, and he said that he tried to sell it over and over again, and everyone always told him nobody wants to watch a movie about sharks.
And when they made it, it was called Mako Jaws of Death, because I saw a picture of the But
what was it?
I think the production equipment said Mako Jaws of Death on it, and then I think maybe when they released it, they figured people wouldn't know what Mako was.
Look here, and this is from Honolulu, and Harold Sakata is from Hawaii, and he got top billing here.
Wow.
I'd give him top billing too.
And the actual and Jaws is just sort of buried over there. Oh no! Wait. Okay, I missed it. I thought that was an entry. Okay.
Oh wow! What a double feature.
Speaking of Richard Jekyll.
Yeah, they should just call this like Double Jekyll all night. All night Jekyll. I would love it.
I love that shark graphic. He looks like he's doing the downward dog, like the yoga pose.
He kind of looks like he's like, "Hey, I'm down here, guys."
He looked pretty playful to me. Yeah. I don't know. A shark could look a lot scarier than that.
I wouldn't have put the PG into this ad. It's like, yeah, it looks so terrifying. And they're like, it's just PG. Don't worry.
So was Day of the Animals, though.
Yeah.
And Jaws.
I think about Day of the Animals a lot. It's a movie that upsets me, so I like it.
Here's the one I was talking about that's about orcas.
Okay.
This looks like the most terrifying documentary ever.
Look how they emphasize the teeth.
That and there's only 5 days. Hurry. Please hurry.
Last 5 days. Don't wait until next week to see this, because even though everyone's paying to see it, it's not going to be here, okay?
Yeah. No bargain matinees. No passes.
Only full price.
Yeah. They must have four-walled it. They're like, you're paying. Oh, man.
Somebody uploaded that. Somebody uploaded that to YouTube. Did you watch it?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can watch it. The digest version of tonight's movie, Mako, Jaws of Death. Please don't do that for real. Watch the whole thing.
Is this the Mako the Jala? Like, that's what this looks like.
You can also watch it on YouTube, hosted by Commander USA.
Oh, I love it.
We're ruining it for David for saying this too many times.
I don't want to take away its occult power from you, so I won't say his name for a little bit.
Vince has this Super 8. I have a small Super 8 collection. This sadly is not in it, and I would love to have a Super 8 just for that cover.
Man, I love it. Parents could literally say, "We have Jaws at home. We're not going out to see the sequels," and put on the Super 8. Say, "Get out the screen, kids, because we're watching Mako again." Like, oh, again? Yes. Watch it again. This seems like the kind of movie my grandfather would watch again and again and make me watch it with him and say, "You see?" And like tell me all his theories about it. The Car was another one of those movies. I watched The Car at least 40, 50 times with him. So, very familiar with The Car. So
I watched it. My mom and aunt were watching Mako Jaws of Death. That's how I first saw it, because I think it was just, when it was on TV, it was on at 8 p.m. and so it was like there was nothing else to watch or whatever. And it's so weird to think that it was really new. It was only like 2 or 3 years old by the time I saw it on TV, and so it was fresh products at one point. That's so strange to think, because it's so
it looks so old.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie is as old as I am, because I was born in '76, and I was like looking at the trailer for Mako Jaws of Death. I'm like, God, I hope I don't look as old as this movie.
I always think about movies that come out similar years. Like Star Wars only came out like a year after this. Like they seem like they're from totally different eras. You know what I mean? Like if you ask me, what year did Mako come out? I'm like, 72, 74. Like they don't feel like near contemporaries.
I think it's, the Florida, the regional filmmaking that comes out of Florida always feels like 10 years behind. Like Flesh Feast feels like it's 10 years earlier than when it came out.
I love when we mention Flesh Feast on the show.
It feels like it's from not just another era, but another planet. It's like, why did this movie happen? And I love it. There's a lot of Florida movies I could say that about.
Was that other movie that we watched of his, was that from Florida too, about the turkey, the guy who imagines that he's a turkey killing people because he has yes was that a Florida movie?
No, I don't think that was a Florida film. I forget where that was made.
Oh, Zat, that's another one too. Is Florida. Like Zat feels like it's 15 years older than it was. It's not until those hippies show up, and then I'm like, oh, you're right. It is like 1972 or something. But otherwise, it just feels like 1960.
Zat was also known as The Bloodwaters of Dr. Z and several other crazy retitles. Why haven't we done Zat on the show yet? How have we not done Zat? I demand Zat on the show.
Elvira put it out and called it Attack of the Swamp Creatures or something.
How didn't we show Zat with what's the other one? I just had Slithis or the one with all the amphibian rape.
Humanoids from the Deep.
Humanoids from the Deep.
I think Zat would make a good double feature with Bog.
Bog. Don't get me started on Aldo Ray. I already have Harold Sakata on the brain. I can only handle so much.
I just watched this shot on video movie from Dead Center, Florida, that Tim Ritter did, and I was like, this is a lot like Blood Feast. And then I thought, Blood Feast was probably filmed right down the street. It's like, you know what I mean? Like all those Herschel Gordon Lewis movies the DNA's in there for nonsensical slashers.
You know what's weird? I just saw Blood Feast for the first time in the last 12 months.
Oh man!
And I watched it, and I was like, "This is really good. Like, why have I never watched this before?"
It's totally. I'm shocked to hear that you've never seen that, because you're such a fan of Criminally Insane.
Well, you know what it is?
It reminds me a lot.
I like plot, and the way it's described, it's like they never really describe the plot. Like every time I read about Blood Feast in like the Psychotronic book or whatever, it just they would. Same thing happened with Mark of the Devil. Like I just thought it was going to be this nonstop cavalcade of torture and stuff. And if they would have said like that there was actual plot and acting and things, I would have watched it. But I just kind of thought, I was like, oh, Blood Feast seems like it'll just be a geek show. But it wasn't. It was actually a good movie. I mean, it wasn't a good movie, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's way better than its reputation may lead you to believe. Bill, should I make?
And that's what they wanted. It wanted that reputation. It deserved that reputation. It worked hard for that reputation.
So you better treat it right. I'm gonna make a drink. You ready for this? This is the Night of the Electric Sharks. And I even got nautical rum to put in it, some Kraken, which is not a shark, but whatever. Let's see if I can open it. Wow. Some of these bottles are starting to get old. We'll drink up. Right, this has an ounce of rum.
I hate when the bottle won't open. That always happens with Midori.
Yeah. And now we're going to have some balls. In your shaker. Now we're going to do 2 ounces of pineapple juice. And 2 ounces of ginger beer. How will it come out? One wonders. All right.
That's static.
Here we go. What are you making, Bill?
Oh, just this and that in a cocktail shaker.
Is it a Midori martini?
No, it is Midori and vodka, but I got some other stuff in there too. Some pineapple juice, coconut, and well, maybe I better not say.
LSD?
Yes, all right, you got it out of me.
Look at that color. It's like Florida water.
It looks like Zat.
Yeah, it does look like that. All right. Well, Mike, I'm so glad you're on this week. And,
Yes, me too. This is a fun. I never would have thought of this movie. I wouldn't like if you would have said suggest a movie. I would never think of Jaws of Death, but it makes total sense because I have a whole history. Like it's one of the first horror movies I ever saw. So Pazuzu.
Yes, Pazuzu.
Man, it was way lighter than I thought it was going to be. It came out really nice.
It doesn't taste like pool water.
It tastes like Zat. Have you ever tasted some Zat?
Not personally.
How about a Slithis?
Oh, I've had plenty of that.
Slithis, he's rough trade.
Slithis is my type.
Is it?
I would say Humanoids of the Deep would be more your type.
Ooh, no. Never humanoids from the deep.
Why? Because they're too athletic.
They're just a little
They're too
bigger.
they're too much.
They're too much, too far.
Well, they team up on people. Like Slithis is a loner. Those are the ones I
yeah.
go for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
just the
just like-
bad boy loner.
Yeah.
So, Sam, we want you. Okay, so we were talking about this. You need to do a pool. Okay, you need to do a poolside like this summer. You need to go outside and do your part of the show from the pool. But we want you to invite people over, and we want it to be like MTV Beach House where you have background extras.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And so
I'll
you're
be
just
like-
like, you know, in the foreground, and then you're like, hey, who wants to see what came in the mail this week? And everyone's like, wee.
Yeah. I'll be like the Ken Ober of that situation.
And you can just have like the creme de la creme, like the top fans from the chat, like appear in the background.
Becca said she's going to cast some people, so we have a couple like beautiful people, and then to surround me, and then
Right.
some locals.
Just have all these movie nerds sitting around, and then just these like random like bikini models sort of like
It'll be like
confusingly
when what was that the movie show, the big show that the dude from Premiere Magazine did on MTV, and they would whenever they would do their spring break one, it's like Chris Connolly doesn't know any of these women, like he's in movie theaters all the time. Yeah, that's a great idea. We're gonna do that. We'll show. Man, that seems like the Zat weekend. We'll do like a double undersea kind of baddie kind of
Poolside horror.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Poolside horror. I think that's good. Bill should also bring camera. We'll both like have dual cameras. So sometimes you'll see us from one side and the other. It'll be like Wicked, kind of like wherever it kind of that movie kind of works with two screens. That's what it's going to be like.
And remember how Wicked also had like 10 background extras that would just crisscross in the hotel like over and over.
That movie has a great song though. Like that song is a fucking earworm, and the trailer's awesome. And you're like, how many theaters did they talk into doing? That's probably not that many, and it's just amazing.
Have you seen her? That's Tiffany Bowling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen her latest, like her recent stuff where she's on YouTube singing like Make America Great Again songs?
I can only imagine that's where it went. Yeah.
And she's got her like long flowing hair and she kind of looks like an old witch.
Tiffany Bowling?
Yeah, like
I bought it's well known that Rosie Holitik from Don't Look in the Basement appeared in Playboy.
Mm.
Or at least, she was on the cover, and I assumed there was a pictorial in there somewhere, but I ordered her issue of Playboy from eBay, and it arrived, and Rosie's pictorial had been cut out. Like her pictures weren't in there. So I had to, console myself with nude photos of Tiffany Bowling, who was in the same issue.
My God.
Oh man. Yeah, I went to go see Kingdom of the Spiders at the New Beverly, and she was there talking about it and stuff. And she's like an old Republican. She's like, oh, I'm so upset. I don't know why I did Playboy or whatever. And it's like, shut up.
Right. You just got old.
Yeah.
I saw Steve brought up Spuds MacKenzie. There's a bar that we go to, Big Jim's, and they actually have a Spuds MacKenzie on either side of the bar. They're ancient now. None of the paint that says Bud Light is on them. They're all just white now. But I'm like, how long have they had these Spuds MacKenzies? At least like 25 years. They've had these in the bar. They still light up. They have like a light up body, and they're still there. And I'm like, man.
I used to have one of those.
Oh, he was America's party animal. What?
It was like a fiberglass light up Spuds MacKenzie.
Yeah, exactly.
My mom got me one.
Remember how human women would be like?
I was gonna say,
flirting with Spud.
Yeah,
there was some strange suggestion going on there.
Yeah, it's like if you drink this beer, even if you're a dog, these hot women are gonna get with you.
Right.
Spuds MacKenzie, you figured it out. It's crazy that like as a kid, merchandise, and not just Jug Hamill, but like merchandise was made available to me as a kid of alcoholic things. Like I had a kid-sized Bartles and James shirt. Like how, and not that much alcohol. Yeah, all the Marlboro stuff. Like Hills, our department store had this in like sizes I could wear. I'm like, yes, I will take a Spuds MacKenzie shirt.
There was a Marlboro catalog.
Yeah.
That if you knew somebody who smoked like 2 or 3 packs a day, like my dad did, like you could get some nice shit out of the Marlboro catalog. He got me this really nice leather jacket from the Marlboro catalog. It was amazing, but it had a Marlboro logo on it somewhere. And I was like, I don't want to wear something with Marlboro advertising.
It's like you like rolled into school. You're like 13. You're like rocking a Marlboro leather jacket.
Yeah.
I'm one of the bad kids.
I remember everybody I knew had this like the little zip up cooler for like a sandwich and a drink. I think that was probably one of the easiest things to get, and people would just get impatient collecting the Marlboro miles or whatever, so they would just cash them in as soon as possible.
The only thing I ever did with them is the Afghan Wigs played a secret show for Marlboro Miles here, and someone gave us enough packets that we got to go, and it was walks. There were like literally 25 people there. So they just did requests all night, and it was awesome. It was one of my favorite shows I've ever been to.
I remember I wore like some sort of booze and or cigarette logoed shirt to school as a kid, and like my teacher got mad. It was like, you need to change that.
There's a picture of me wearing a Bartles and James shirt as a kid. I look like a small frog, and I'm wearing a Bartles and James shirt and Jams, and of course Airwalks, and I'm skateboarding. It's really pretty much, in case you wondered why it took me to my mid-20s to lose my virginity, you'll be like, oh yeah, that all makes sense now. That totally is it. Yeah, but I had that Bartles and James shirt. That commercial was powerful. That and the other song of the other commercial I remember from there is the Seagram's Coolers ones with Bruce Willis in it, where we're like, oh, Bruce Willis can. We were like, oh fuck, Bruce Willis can sing, and we weren't like, oh fuck, Bruce Willis can sing. It was like early on in the Bruce Willis love, you know.
We didn't know yet.
We didn't know he was Bruno yet. We're like, wow, that's cool. That guy from Moonlighting can sing. That guy from Twilight Zone can sing.
Yep, that was right. Seagram's, it's wet and it's dry.
My. Yeah. And then he had a whole album and an HBO movie about Bruno. How did this happen? How is this allowed to happen?
He's retired now, right? Because he has like some dementia or something.
Yeah, there's still movies coming out though. Like a new one just came out like last week with him in it.
I think what he does is, I think that they would get him for these like red box, like they would get him, shoot 2 days with him or whatever, and just have the footage and just incorporate it into some movie later on.
There's a movie with him and Michael Rooker on Tubi, and he's like a super criminal inside this like super prison. It's a superhero movie too with Bruce Willis, and there's times where you're like, you can literally see when it's him, when it's not him. Like there's a lot of like him shot from the back most of the movie, and then they'll cut and you can see he has an earpiece in all the time, so he's getting fed lines most of it. And who knew speaking of, you said like the Klaus Kinski thing and Natasha becoming Klaus, who would have it in the future? Like someday Bruce Willis is going to kind of be the Klaus Kinski of these movies and just show up for 1 or 2 scenes.
Right.
Who else do we have that could adequately fill Klaus Kinski's shoes?
Well, what's his name has said, Nicolas Cage referred to himself as California Kinski.
Mm-hmm.
He's like there was a period where that's what I called myself, because I was just doing a movie every couple of days.
I don't get, Klaus Kinski is one of those people I've never gotten. Like everybody's like, yeah, he's so brilliant. I'm like, is he though? I mean,
I like him.
He's cool, but like, I don't know. He's creepy. He looks like Vivica Linford's. Like, yeah. I've never seen Klaus Kinski and Vivica Linford's in the same place at the same time.
He's beyond creepy and schizo.
Oh yeah.
Because I just saw Vivica Linford in a Law and Order episode.
Oh really?
Ago. Yeah. She was the housekeeper.
We restarted Murder, She Wrote, so I'm getting to see a lot of my favorite actors and actresses and stuff.
Do you think that when Klaus Kinski was in Schizoid, he said to anybody like, hey, I played a red herring psychiatrist who was banging his female patients in this great movie called Slaughter Hotel. You should watch it.
It's really creepy.
They may have seen it.
Klaus Kinski like licks a woman's face in Schizoid, and it's like, that he never there was no intimacy coach in that movie. Do you know what I mean? It's just like Klaus Kinski is going to do whatever he wants.
Well, apparently, okay. So you know how what's the name of the guy who's the killer in Schizoid who was in Body Double?
Craig Wasson.
Yeah. Okay. So you were telling me about how like Mariana Hill said that Craig Wasson like slapped the makeup girl or whatever, and like he apparently Klaus Kinski pulled the director aside and said, "Get rid of Craig Wasson. He's crazy." Like, that when Klaus Kinski is worried about your unprofessionalism and your mental health and wants you gone, that like there's something seriously wrong with you.
I would like to hear him say that, because it would be creepy to hear him say it and then and see it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I should probably maniacs.
And then Craig Wasson is like, what? He was like listening by the door or something.
I completely buy him as being deranged in Body Double, by the way. Like when usually like when the heroes in movies are like the cops don't believe him, like he's telling the truth. And this year, like you want to say to the cops, like I've been with him this whole movie and he's nuts. Like,
he walked a little too boldly into the ladies' room. That always bothered me.
Yeah.
And then he was also in Ghost Story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He did a movie with Linda Gillen.
Oh, he did? Was he crazy on that?
Yes. He was sort of like the kind of character that Matthew McConaughey played in Dazed and Confused. He was like this guy who was a little bit too old to be hanging around the kids that he was hanging around, and everybody liked him because he had a really nice car. He was popular because he had a really hot car. And Linda was this waitress in a diner that he started making advances towards because she was really shy and introverted, and he was just like fucking with her, you know, like coming on to her and making her think he liked her and then breaking her heart. It's called Nights at O'Rear's. It's only about 45 minutes long. I don't know why it was filmed because it seems like the kind of thing that would just be part of something else. It's only 45 minutes long.
It's like too long for a short and too short for a feature.
Yeah. It was strange, but it's on YouTube.
Was it made for TV and they were just or did they make it with the intent that it would fill an hour-long block on TV? Like,
it's possible.
Because you know some movies were like, remember like Smooth Talk with Laura Dern, I think was produced by PBS, even though it got a theatrical release, you know, like, so.
I see a lot of talk of Eric Roberts on the side, and I'm super excited because A Talking Cat's one of my favorite movies. Because you know who really directed A Talking Cat, right?
David Dakota, right?
Yep. It's literally a movie where Eric Roberts shows up over stock. He's the cat. He did it on an iPhone, and like characters show up in stock footage, just doing voiceovers of stock footage.
David Dakota offends me. Like his laws, like he just disrespects film, like the medium of film. Like,
well, I can always tell one of his movies because like when Bigfoot versus DB Cooper came out, I said that's an interesting, wild idea for a movie. And then I'm like, this movie spent a lot of time at guys at poolside, not doing anything but just lounging at the pool with their shirts off. And I was like, oh fuck, it's David Dakota movie. And then I watched the whole thing, but you know.
I think David Dakota is a genius.
Yeah.
Just because of the way he's sort of like has tapped into this. He understands what it is about film that sells really easily. And it doesn't matter what the content is. There's like things that people are watching for. And he just made shirtless guys his thing that people are watching for.
Yeah.
Except for his kid and holiday movies, which are stock footage.
I'm sure they're paying jobs.
You know,
Rock is in one of his movies, his Christmas movie, and she plays Mrs. Claus, which is my favorite casting ever. Like, it's just the best casting.
He made one where Marsha from Maureen McCormick is like a mom or something, and this is why I hate David Dakota. So she comes walking in the room and she's like talking to her kid, and the light switch plate next to the door is all covered in fingerprints, you know, as light switch plates are wont to do. But I'm like, you're making a fucking movie. Like, Windex that shit. Like, come on. Like, you can't even Windex a light switch plate. Like, I'm not asking you to like art direct this. I'm not asking you to like spend more than 3 days shooting it, but get those fingerprints off of that. What, are you crazy?
Oh, it's he makes all those 1313 movies, and they're all shot in the same house.
Yeah,
they all have like ties, like names that are close to other movies, and it's just like amazing. Like, he's a factory of movies. Like,
yeah, the thing that I think is most brilliant about it is the way that he has tapped into that market of streaming films and how he titles his films with numbers so that they're at the very top of the list of movies that people have to choose from when they're looking for something to watch. And that alone is a genius marketing move.
He's the reason why I put the Linnea Quigley and Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer at the beginning of The Trouble with Barry, because we went to go see them at Dark Delicacies in Burbank and get a copy of Cougar Cult signed. And then we went home to watch it. And we were so angry at Cougar Cult and so offended and depressed by how bad it was. And then we watched Nightmare Sisters. And I was like, remember when like David Dakota actually cared? And like when they had a script and stuff, like, let's do something. Let's write something for them. So.
Man, now it can be told.
And also I was kind of mad at him because like my ex and I went out to dinner with him one time and he was like he was really friendly and everything, but then when my ex and I broke up, like David Dakota took like my ex's side or whatever, so I'm like, well, screw you, I'm gonna take your screen queens.
Ooh, that is juicy.
Man, who knew we'd have exclusives out of the show?
That's why we do this show, for moments like this.
Yeah. When Bill does the year in review, this will be the clip of you, Mike.
I didn't do one this year.
He's marking the time code for next year. He's like, this is definitely going in.
I was so depressed. I made a vow that this year, like after each episode, I'll go and I'll clip out like one thing to use in the year.
Everybody should just start waving so as you're scrolling through it, they're like, oh, that's the part I'm supposed to clip. This is it right here. Put up a card, Sam, so I know this is where to clip when I'm scrubbing through the episodes. But I'm excited.
Yeah, there was Full Frontal.
I do
Full Frontal and Ghost Story.
I do enjoy shark movies. Obviously, Bill and I did a whole issue of them. But I like this one. It's got some interesting stuff in it, and as Bill has said before, it was written before Jaws. Maybe.
Right. Well, it is. I mean, it's basically just Stanley with sharks.
Yeah, it's not the story of Jaws.
No. It's just, there were a lot of movies with sharks out at the time.
Mike, do you think this is like Jaws?
No, I mean, the only thing like Jaws is like the poster. Like a shark swimming up at somebody. It's like Willard or Stanley or something. It's like it has more in common with those. Although some of the it's nothing like Jaws, just the title.
One thing that Jaws did was it made people afraid of really big sharks. They had to go and make the shark unrealistically large in Jaws. So not only was it, a shark that was going to eat you, but it was giant. But the smaller sharks are the ones that are most likely to kill you because they're the ones that are swimming around in shallow water looking for something to bite. And, most of the time when a shark bites somebody, it's a mistake. And they thought you were something else that they like to eat. They're not out to eat people like movies like The Shallows would have you believe. Like they have to mistake you for something or just be like, a curiosity bite to see what you are. But unfortunately, it usually makes us bleed to death. So it's not like they're not quite the predators that people make them out to be in these movies. But Mako really gets it because it's a bunch of sharks that are like pretty average size and they're smaller, but they're scary because there's so many of them. And they're just, you realize more in this movie what damage any kind of shark, any size shark could do to a human body. And that's not like Jaws. It's a little bit different.
Well, and these sharks too do like, there's that scene where you'll see it like later where he's talking to the shark and the shark's like shaking his head.
Yeah.
Like he's talking to the shark and he's like, are you mad at me or whatever? And the shark's like, like that
also,
is.
It's got like a Terror House moment, Bill, where there's a dead shark getting talked to. Whenever the one says that he starts talking to it, he's like, oh, no! So if you want to make a sub list, movies that are on the letterbox, movies that were shown on Drive Us Home Late movie where baby sharks are injured, that would be the two movies that go on that list.
Have we watched Terrera yet?
No. I think that's going to be the movie we show in the pool. That's going to be my pool movie.
This is a pro shark film.
Yeah.
Sharks really are not the villain in this movie. The human beings are the villains, and the sharks are just doing their thing.
I was talking to my brother today and explaining this movie to him, and he gave me an idea for a movie. Because if they made Jaws 3 today, SeaWorld would be the bad guys and Jaws would be the good guy. Someone's got to get out there and make that. In a post-Blackfish world, Jaws 3 looks a lot different, doesn't it? That's my elevator pitch. And then they go, "What about your movie?" I'm like, "It's called Stink Bug. It's not about sharks at all." Gotcha. Thanks for letting me in the room. And then I just knock their socks off.
I'm still waiting. I still think we got to pitch. We have to pitch Susan George for the Tintorera sequel.
Oh yeah.
When is she coming to? Is she going to be at the drive-in this year?
I hope so.
Oh man, you and I would pull her into the snack bar and be like, "Susan, we got a great idea for you." We'd both be super drunk or high and just ranting to her, and she's like, "Okay, great, thank you. Do you need an autograph?" We're like, "No, we want to sell you on the script."
Yeah, you're a crazy old lady who everybody hates because you keep hijacking their attention away from everyone else and bringing it back to that time you were banging those 2 shark hunters in Mexico. And she's like,
"Does she have a cameo? Because I want to pay for her to do a cameo of a scene for this and send it to you because it'll blow your mind. Like one day you'll just go on the phone and be like, a cameo from George, and it's just her like, "I ever told you about the time the 2 men railed me in Mexico? But I think they were really in love with each other."
I mean, it might not have. Here's the thing. This is why. Okay, so you remember? So Bill made that little skit that was the Helena Marcos pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
And I said that I wanted to do like a whole movie, like a Kentucky Fried movie thing of like these esoteric sort of like we could do like the ad for the Helena Marcos pizza restaurant, and then we'll have a fake trailer for Tintorera 2. And we'll love it, and there'll be like 4 people who buy tickets for this weird thing.
It'll be our references will be so obscure or non-interesting that people would just overlook it.
Yeah, like 5 people are going to get Tintorera 2, and everyone else is going to be like, "What?"
It's like the stuff I say to my wife, and she just smiles and looks at me while I tell her the most inane things. I was so excited tonight because this Jess Franco movie had the same guy in it that made a movie for Canon, which is a Candid Camera ripoff made in Israel. And I was like, "I can't believe these 2 worlds are together." And she just looked at me and smiled, and she cried that
I get those same looks.
Yeah.
From everybody in my life.
I felt like the 2 poles of the movie universe had come together, and I was like, "How is this happening?"
I was trying to explain. I was watching this movie called Venice Beach that was produced by Bouvier, who was in Surgikill, the Andy Milligan movie, and she used all the crew and the producers of the movie Boarding House because she wanted to have a shot on video movie. And I was so desperately trying to tell everyone I was so excited to find out that the Andy Milligan and Boarding House universes overlapped, and I couldn't share that with anybody because it was like I was a schizophrenic. Like everyone's just like,
because then you have to explain Boarding House, right? They were trying to make a real movie, but they shot it on video. They put it out like a real movie.
Yeah,
it's 2.5 hours long, and they're like, "What's it about?" And I'm like, "I don't even know."
Yeah,
yeah. The Boarding House is in that new In Search of the '80s thing, and it's funny watching talking heads try to like summarize what Boarding House is all about, and it's just like it's a lot.
Yeah, I've tried to explain it to people before, and it's I'm like, you just have to watch it.
Yeah,
but you can't watch it knowing what it is. You have to watch it thinking you're going to watch a real movie.
Yeah,
and then you watch.
I would be worried. It's one of those movies I worry about telling people about, because then they like will never stop giving me shit. Like, "Well, one time you told me about this movie," because it's something that you want to recommend to someone that you know is going to get it, and like get obsessed about it, versus like someone that's just like, "Oh, this is just a bad movie," when it's not.
Yeah,
a bad movie. I hate that's such an overused term. I hear that said all the time about movies that are not bad movies at all.
Yeah,
like Showgirls. Showgirls is not a bad movie. Do not call Showgirls a bad movie until you've seen a truly bad movie, and then we can talk.
Yeah, I have a lot of streaming movies that came out this week that I had a review that I will put way ahead. It's not the, you know what I mean, over Showgirls. Like, people haven't seen The Bottom of the Barrel. I saw a used bookstore the other day. It was like the history of the Razzie Awards, and I was like, I don't want to ever look at this book. It just upsets me.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what movie I think is not bad? It's like kind of like a show. Is Color of Night with Bruce Willis.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
No, I mean it's, you know what it is? It's tonally, it's exactly like Freebie and the Bean. You know, it's like it kind of just veers wildly between, you know, like comedy and action and all this stuff. And I just think that people in the 90s just took their thrillers way too seriously. Like they wanted stuff that was like super serious and super, and they just didn't want to watch something with like that where they were just having fun with it.
I don't know whether you could really call it a giallo. I hate to like argue that with people, but it really does have that giallo atmosphere to it, where it's dumb, and you know it's dumb, but like it still sucks you in because it's a very visually interesting film. I think The Color of
And
Night.
It's
and
funny
the
because I looked back at Becca to see if she was awake, and she was smiling as soon as you said color. I think Mike and Becca are very on a wavelength on movies, as we talked about this week.
you know, Color of Night is so Jalo-ish too because the protagonist is not a suspect, but the cop kind of pretends like he is, you know, to get him to do like you know, it's very
Yes.
like Dressed to Kill, very like Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
I like in Jalo where they tell people, we're just going to give you a special phone number to call us when you need us, but help us find out who did the killing. Like, no, like I want protection and I want like at least a gun. Like, no, you have this phone number. Okay, thanks.
We're going to use you. What kind of a lawsuit would her loved ones have had if Nancy Allen had been killed while she was? What if Bobby had gotten her?
Yeah,
Then
but she was
what?
just a hooker. She's just a blonde, as Dennis Franz would say.
Some blonde bitch saw me, but I'll get her.
I like that Dennis Franz's character for most of his career was like shitty cop. Like you know what I mean? Like just racist bad cop. And he ran with it until they gave him his own series. And like, how do we make Belko a hero? And they did it for 3 episodes.
I love Dennis Franz in Dressed to Kill. I love all of his choices. I love his gum chomping. I love the way he pronounces blonde. Like, I think he's just like the coolest thing. And I used to listen to this podcast, but then like the guy on the podcast was going off about how much he hated Dennis Franz and Dressed to Kill. And like, basically I feel like it just illustrated like so many differences between me and this podcaster that I was like, I don't know if I can like agree with anything you ever say anymore.
That's a tone deaf take.
Yeah. I don't like when people like, that's the worst thing where you're like, oh, don't ruin. When I start to like somebody's opinions and then they say something like that, you're like, oh, I guess we could never be friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a litmus test. Like I had a friend who used to like show potential roommates Female Trouble, the John Waters movie. And if they were just like, what's this? This is weird or whatever, then she's just like, all right, we can't live together.
How about John Waters went on Fox News this week? That was my favorite thing to happen this week.
No.
Yeah, there was a thing like Popa Trash says, so-called Popa Trash says, this is the line, that the drag shows for children are funny. Of course he said that. Like, what did you expect him to say? I can imagine how it was said. Like, he thinks they're funny.
God forbid.
God forbid.
All right, so I've dropped the link several times in the chat to tonight's movie. There's only one. I think someone mentioned earlier they had watched the first one. Unfortunately, we can only do one movie with it because nobody's still going to be up. I have a hard time staying up to the end of the show. So we're only watching one movie. Come back afterwards, though, and we'll have some more to talk about. Mako, Jaws of Death, or just Jaws of Death, if you will. With me, Sam, and Mike Justice.